Lance, what would you say needs to be on the public health agenda to give the anti-coal movement more teeth? Say that again? What kind of studies need to be done to show that coal's hurting people's health?
They have, like, Physicians for Social Responsibility just came out with a huge study that's really good, and there's a doctor down in West Virginia that came up with, I think it was 5 different peer-reviewed health studies. You have if you live within 5 miles of an active coal mine, you have a 70% increased chance of kidney failure. I saw a lot of really scary statistics with that, and so those things exist. It's more just getting them to acknowledge it, and that's kind of hard to do. It's kind of like, okay, the people that I went down and did the hair sample analysis with, okay, one of the women took her results, and she took the results of what was in her water to her doctor, and asked if there couldn't be some kind of a health study, and he referred her to a psychologist. I slept with my windows open one night. I'll show you a picture here. If I can get this thing back up. And I woke up with a horrible, horrible headache. And I don't go to a doctor very often, but I had to get a physical for school. And that was already scheduled that day. When I went outside to walk my dog, the emissions from all 4 power plants were blowing directly across my house. It looked like something out of Lord of the Rings. I'll show you a picture. And after my physical was over, I said to my doctor, you know, when I woke up this morning, I felt really bad, and I went outside and I showed her the picture, and I said, "This is what it looked like. Oh, this is what it looks like when they dump the power plant waste on our roofs. That's not gravel. That's power plant waste, like what we were just passing here in this room on top of the snow. That's how thick it is." When I said that to her, she said, "You know." And I told her, I said, you know, I think it's from the power plants, because I slept with my window open. I like the fresh air. I don't like to run an air conditioner. And I think that was what made me feel bad. I said, do you have any studies that show, you know, the connection between what I would have breathed during the night and why I feel this way this morning? And she said to me, you know, every time you come in here, she said, you complain about these power plants. And she got a piece of paper and she started writing. And she said, I'm not saying that I won't see you again. She said, but I think it's time you started looking for another doctor. Here's a list to start with. And she teaches at the university. You know, I mean, she's... Tell me your original question again, and let me try and answer it.
What questions need to be answered in terms of the health impacts of coal on people to give the whole movement more teeth? Or are you saying the information's already out there?
I'm saying there's information there.
See it.
And I'm not sure, like, who would have the power to acknowledge it rather than deny it. We know that it makes us sick, and we know how it makes us sick. You know, it's the PM 2.5 that's small enough to cross our lung tissue and get into our bloodstream and cause things like cardiovascular problems or whatever. And that's why I was asking for ambient air monitoring, because like with AMP Ohio, they measured, I think it was like PM10 down. And so there's no separating the PM10 from the stuff that actually causes health impacts. And so there's nothing to measure it, as long as they can not even measure it to say that, you know, this is responsible for this and this is what you're being exposed to. Some health studies would be a good idea, but I don't know, in a way, I'm hesitant to go that route because of, like, ATSDR, that does the health studies. Teresa Mills, who works with the Buckeye Environmental Network, fought for, I think, like 3 years to get a health study on the other side of Cheshire. They had the Shelley company that was like making tar and gravel, and it just smelled horrible. One time she was over there with an ambient air monitor that was like one that you could rent. I think it was like $500 a day, and it went off the chart. And the people, she called them and said, I think this thing is malfunctioning. And she said, this is the readings I'm getting. And they did something from a distance and said, get out of there now. And we're telling her that what she was being exposed to, that was an accurate reading. It was like one off the charts. And she said, I can't leave here. She said, these people live here. How can I go running out of here and leave these people here to live in this? So maybe getting things measured, You know, like if we could get access to measuring what our air quality is like and really proving that. They did a study on the mercury and women who lived in our community, and I think it was like something like 4 out of 10 had mercury levels high enough to cause birth defects. And we went to the public television radio station up at Ohio University, which has a lot of clean coal funding. When the emphasis went to research, who has the money for research? And so all of a sudden the coal industry had a much stronger voice there. So you want to look at who's getting money for what and why. But I remember they called me an environmentalist like 10 times in 2 minutes. I don't even know how they could fit it into it that many times. Because I'm not an environmentalist, goddammit. I'm not. It's part of my language, but I'm like really frustrated. I'm somebody who's trying to be healthy where I live and to get these people to be responsible or just go away. And people think you're, this raging environmentalist, and I'm not. And not only did they do that, the following day, they did another report, and they said that the television station, or that the people who released the report, there was a university that did the actual study showing this, that them and the environmental group that helped fund it had been misleading people because they weren't telling them how many people were not getting sick. I mean, it was like really ridiculous what they came out with in response to it. But it was all just like to discredit it. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that getting independent research, that's what I'm getting at. Like, not something that is done through our government. Because there is no separation. Believing that there's any separation between the energy industry and our government is completely, there is no separation between the two. So getting something that's independent, that can't be questioned, that's peer-reviewed, and getting it out there. Because even the American Cancer Society is a little, I heard and I don't even really know how to tell people, but it's not the way it should be. We have the highest lung cancer death rate in the state, but even that is misleading because we don't have a hospital. A lot of our people go to West Virginia, and so a lot of the statistics are never gathered up. So we're number one in the death rate, but it doesn't begin to tell what our actual issues are because the information isn't captured.
It sounds like the medical evidence is there, but the fact that they're sacrificial communities in the eyes of the companies and in the government is the bigger problem, not whether or not there's proof that they're getting sick.
And what you're saying is not off base. I went to speak at a conference. It was a privately funded conference at a United Methodist Church. And originally my friend Mary Gibson was fighting up the talking, and he asked me at the last minute, do you want to go? And I said, heck yeah. And any chance that we can have to connect with other communities, I'm on that truck and I'm going. And when we got over there, I asked him on the way, I said, so what's on the agenda for this? And he has trouble reading some. And he said, well, it's up there in that envelope. And I pulled it out and said, hey, they're going to talk about alternative energies. And so we got there, and what they wanted was they had wanted us there to talk about how bad coal was. And 3/4 of the people there were retired nuclear physicists. What's the probability that you're going to take a cross-section of the United Methodist Church and come up with 3/4 of them being nuclear-educated physicists? And they didn't know I worked on nuclear, because we've got piped in Ohio. And so I talked with them about, the uranium in the fish and the plutonium in the fish and what they were finding. And he said to me on the break that it was necessary for people to die where we lived, because otherwise more people farther out would die because they wouldn't have the electricity that they needed to run their hospitals and the facilities that they needed. And I'm like, buddy, we don't even have a hospital. Don't talk to me about people dying. But that, in a church, that man said that to me. And I screamed all the way home. Larry, if he bought me a steak to shut me up, he said, honey, I'll buy you a steak if you'll just stop. Because normally I'm like trying to cheer him up. And I knew that people thought that way, but it was the first time anybody had the audacity to say it to me. And I don't know how they would feel if the shoe was on the other foot. And maybe that will eventually happen. There's a thing called karma.